It's a Croque Monsieur. Kevin and I shared one on a rainy afternoon in Paris on our first anniversary. It's one of our most treasured memories. I'm sure it's not up to your standards, but Kevin seemed to enjoy it. So, thank you for your guidance.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week, after a strenuous two-parter, I was in need of a slightly simpler episode, and it doesn't get much simpler than Croque Monsieur. It is, after all, little more than a toasted ham and cheese sandwich, but one that can take so many forms. First, we have to start with what is arguably the French original, a sandwich built on a simple Pullman-style loaf called pain de mie. To make pain de mie, we are combining 150 milliliters of milk, 225 milliliters of lukewarm water, 85 grams of unsalted room temperature butter, 2 1/4 teaspoons kosher salt, 35 grams of granulated sugar, 30 grams of non-fat dry milk, 35 grams of potato flour, 575 grams of all-purpose flour, and 2 teaspoons of instant yeast in the bowl of a stand mixer. In this recipe, courtesy of King Arthur flour. Once we've assembled our cute little mountain of ingredients, it's time to place them in the base of our stand mixer, affix dough hooks, and mix on low speed for 2 minutes, just enough time for all the ingredients to get to know each other and become one in a shaggy mass of dough that just starts to clear the sides of the bowl. Once this has been achieved, we're cranking the speed all the way up to medium-low, walking away and allowing the machine to knead for 5 to 6 minutes until the dough is smooth and elastic, stretchy, supple, and bouncy. In other words, a properly kneaded batch of enriched bread dough, which we're going to plop back in the bowl, wrap in plastic wrap, and let rest at room temperature for anywhere from 45 minutes to 1 1/2 hours, until the dough has puffed but not quite doubled in size. We're then turning this guy out onto an unfloured work surface, punching him down, and preparing him for a little nap in a Pullman loaf-shaped bed, one whose every crevice we're going to thoroughly lubricate with butter. Then it's the seemingly simple matter of shaping our dough into a loaf. First, we have to press and stretch it out into a rectangle slightly wider than our intended recipient pan. Then you can either roll it up widthwise like a sleeping bag rolled up incorrectly, or you can fold it in from the center, press it down, and then fold it in from the edges. Then folding the whole thing over on top of itself, and I know this doesn't make any sense. The point is that we're forming it into a loaf the width of our bread pan, which is about 13 inches. Plopping our loaf into the bread pan, lightly pressing it down into the corners, covering with plastic wrap and letting rest again at room temperature anywhere from 45 minutes to 1 1/2 hours, until risen just below the lip of the pan. Now here's the goofy thing about Pullman loaves. They're meant to be baked in a closed system. Normally a loaf pan like this would have a slide-on cover, but I can't seem to find mine, so we're going to improvise with a little bit of nonstick spray and aluminum foil. First spraying down the loaf to ensure that it does not stick, and then wrapping tightly with 2 layers of aluminum foil to ensure that the loaf has no place to grow. Then we're going to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes before removing from the oven and unwrapping, revealing the strange but intended outcome of a perfectly square loaf. We're then placing this guy back in the oven for another 20 minutes until lightly browned, and a thermometer inserted into the thickest part of the loaf, aka any part of the loaf, registers between 190 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit, or 87 to 93 degrees Celsius. I'm already getting tired of Googling temperature conversions. We're then letting our loaf cool completely on a wire rack for about an hour and a half before slicing and inspecting our crumb. And we saw that it was a good crumb, for it was light and airy. Go ahead and slice into big old thick sandwich slices, which we're going to lightly toast in our toaster oven, ouch, before assembling into its intended sandwich outcome. First, we have to shred 3 to 4 ounces of Gruyere cheese, and we could just make this a ham and cheese, but it's way better with a bechamel, which we've made a number of times, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through it. 1 tablespoon butter melted, 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour. Whisk and cook until raw flour smell dissipates, before very slowly and in stages adding 1 cup of tepid milk, adding little splashes of milk at a time until a paste forms before adding any more. Once the whole cup has been added and you're sure that there's no gunk in the corners of your pan, continue cooking 5 to 7 minutes until nice and thick and good. Then we're going to quickly season with a little grating of fresh nutmeg, a little sprinkle of white pepper, and a generous pinch of kosher salt. Whisk to combine and continue cooking 1 more minute until it's thick enough to coat the back of a spoon. Cover and allow to cool 10 to 15 minutes before sandwich assembly, or you could even make it ahead of time and refrigerate. Either way, you want it to have a nice, thick, mayonnaise-like consistency. Spread a couple tablespoons worth on the bottom slice of your bread, just enough to cover it, and then top that with a restrained mountain of grated Gruyere. We're then topping that with 6 slices of ham that I pre-folded for your viewing convenience, topping that with another pile of Gruyere, hitting our top slice of of bread with a smear of bechamel, and topping the whole thing up. But wait, we're not done. The top of the sandwich gets hit with another layer of bechamel and another layer of Gruyere cheese. And then the whole thing heads into the oven at 375 F190C until thoroughly browned and bubbly and melty and awesome. And there you have it, Croque Monsieur, which I'm positive, like most words, I said incorrectly. But enough about how it sounds, what about how it looks? Let's take a look at that cross-section, where you can see it is predictably cheesy and toasty and saucy and hammy. It reminds me of the Croque Monsieur that I ordered on a train from Dijon to Paris. I promise never to attempt to say that many French things in one sentence again. But as per usual on this show, we gotta look for some subtle ways to improve, the end product. We're gonna start by using brioche as our bread base, which is lighter and flakier and butterier, which is especially nice in this toasted and melty context. Next, we're gonna hit our top slice of toast with a thin spread of Dijon mustard, bringing another dimension of sharpness and tang to our sandwich. And then we are starting this guy off in the oven, but we are finishing him in the broiler, where he's gonna get an even more profound and French onion soup-like gratinée on top. Oh yeah, that is doing things to me. But one more simple addition will upgrade this sandwich from a fork and knife affair to a fork, knife, and napkin brunch time, anytime, all day freak fest. And that is a fried, sunny side up, crispy, runny egg, transforming this Croque Monsieur into a Croque Madame, and transforming my heart into a cholesterol refinery. But you're not going to hear me complaining. We upgraded the bread, we added mustard, and we added a fried egg. Surely there is no further level, no higher echelon to which we dare venture. Oh yeah, except for the Monte Cristo, where we Americanize the sandwich by dipping it in batter and frying it. I'm making a simple custard out of 2 eggs and half a cup of milk. I am preheating my ham in the microwave since it's not going to get as much attention in the pan as it would in the oven. And I am assembling my sandwich business as usual. Bechamel, Gruyere, ham, Gruyere, mustard, bechamel, top it up, and this time we're going to use a flat surface like a plate to squish it down. We want the whole thing kind of compacted so it does not fall apart, as it goes for a brief swim in our custard for 15 to 20 seconds on each side, until the lightly toasted bread is fully saturated with the egg mixture. Then over on the stovetop, we've got a non-stick pan with a tablespoon of butter foamed up and waiting, into which we're going to drop our sandwich, frying for about 5 minutes per side, just as you would, French toast, until it's nice and golden brown and crisp. Plate it up once good and melty, and then top it with powdered sugar for some reason. Grab some raspberry preserves and you're ready to dig into your mid-morning monster. But something doesn't feel quite right. Chef John's words are ringing in my ear. I think this thing needs to be made into a Monte Cristo Madame, a Monty Madame, a Croque Cristo, whatever you call it. It's a member of the clean plate and then go take a nap in the middle of the day club.